first of all, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. All right. I don't know a whole lot about a lot of things, but I do know it's like to basically get your life back together, put things back in order, and rebuild yourself back into what it is. But since I only have 20 minutes, I kind of give like a snapshot for those who maybe not know me of kind of like what took me to where I was and what it took basically for me to get back to the state. And really my brand is more about overcoming adversity, a lot of discipline, and really getting things back and getting back under control, basically when things got out of order. Well, essentially, just in a nutshell, I'm from Youngstown, and Youngstown, a lot like Cincinnati. I grew up in the inner city, around a bunch of confusion, a lot of things that shaped my mind into basically being attracted to violence, being attracted to basically a lot of inner city activity. And for the most part, I was incarcerated 3 times. Played sports here and there, but never really took it serious. My third time of being incarcerated, I was actually breaking inside somebody's house. As I was breaking inside the person's home, the individual had woke up outside of his sleep. He came down the hallway, and as he came down the hallway, he seen me and another guy basically taking the possessions out. So he ran down the hallway, locked himself in the room. I jumped out the window, busted my head open, and essentially, to make a long story short, I got caught a day after. So I was sitting on the floor inside the juvenile facility. There was about 100 kids per se, and in the process of doing that, there was a gentleman who kind of saved my life by the name of Mr. Roland Smith. And so Roland came and snatched me up in the middle of the night. He said, "Hey Maurice, I've been watching you play football your whole life. I've been watching you play basketball. I know your mother. I know of your father, but basically you're heading down the wrong road." So essentially he goes to the judge, and he agrees with the judge to actually be a mentor to me, or basically place me on house arrest and let him basically take me back and forth to practice, lift weights, and basically get involved in sports. So the judge agreed. I was placed on house arrest, and after I was placed on house arrest, it's the first time I was basically introduced to weightlifting, conditioning, and things of that nature. And so at that time, my mind went from basically ripping and running around the neighborhood to basically me getting myself together, going to play football, and basically moving forward. So after about a year's time, I never really knew how good I was in football. I go out as a 14-year-old freshman and dominate on the football field. So I dominated on the football field my freshman year. The same thing happens my sophomore year, my junior year, and essentially my senior year, I became the most dominant player in America. Became Mr. USA Today, Mr. Football, high school Heisman, and anything that you could possibly want to name. So initially, when I get out of high school, I transitioned down to Ohio State. My whole mind is wrapped around playing football. There was nothing academic in my future. I didn't really care to get myself together academically. I thought football would be the end all of everything. So lo and behold, I get down to Ohio State, working my tail off, 4th on the depth chart. I'm behind 3 guys, working to do everything to get on the football field, and to kind of speed that process up instead of a bunch of football details for the sake of time, I end up earning myself the starting position on the Ohio State football team. So at this time, there was a lot going on in my life, a lot of joy, a lot of excitement, a lot like, man, I'm going to go to the NFL one day. If you start running back for Ohio State, your chances to go into the NFL are high, and I'm thinking like this will be my whole life. So lo and behold, we go out to the first game, and I run for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. After I complete the game, I never knew how my life would change, and basically this is how things started to change. So after I was done with the game, we came out to a section where you had like autographs. I mean, little kids waiting for autographs, tailgaters who had watched the game and they were joyous to see you. Then you also had another section where you had my homeboys, my cousins, my brothers, and everything like that. And so it started off like, yo, Reese, let's go out, let's go have a nice time, let's head over to the nightclub, let's go ahead and basically enjoy ourselves. So I'm like, all right, cool, no problem. We'll get over here, we'll handle our business. And basically I'm thinking like, that was it, let's go ahead and celebrate the moment. And so little did I know that basically I would become off track. So I go out to the nightclub. You got champagne everywhere, you got liquor everywhere, you got beer everywhere, you got just a good time around everything. And I remember there was a concert going on, but I remember thinking to myself like, man, I'm caught up. You know what I'm saying? I was enjoying myself. People taking pictures of me, people wanted to be around me, people wanted my autograph, people wanted my number, and basically I was just caught up inside the moment. So lo and behold, I get back to practice that next week, and I remember like it was yesterday, we were doing like this kickoff return drill, and so I was catching the football, and I was thinking to myself like, man, I can't wait to go out here to basically be a celebrity and not really caring about winning the football game. You follow me? Makes sense? Okay, right? So we go halfway through the season, and Coach Tressel calls me in. He was the head coach at the time. He said, hey man, Maurice, you tripping. He was like, you've been out the last few weeks, you're not really going to class, you're sort of losing your way. Basically, can I help to get you back on track? And so in the back of my mind, I was like, man, I don't really care about what you're talking about right now. I'm a celebrity just like you're a celebrity, so basically I'm just ignoring the man and all his advice. So we go out here again, we continue to go through the season, we go to the Michigan week, we beat Michigan, but something that happened prior to us going out and playing Michigan. The weekend before we played Michigan, me and some of my guys, I got into a fight in downtown Columbus. And so the police arrested all the people that I was with, but they didn't arrest me inside the process. And Coach Trussell was like, I heard about what happened. They didn't arrest you because of who you were, but please can you separate yourself away from these people? Basically, he was seeing what I wasn't seeing, right? So I ignore him. We beat Michigan. We go to the national championship game. We beat Miami. And after that, my ego became the size of Cincinnati, Columbus, Toledo, Cleveland, whatever you can name. I had the biggest ego you can probably think of. So lo and behold, this was also, to compound the problem, this was also LeBron's senior year in high school. LeBron got Nike, Adidas, Reebok, anybody you can name, all at his games, all at his door. I decided to skip class and skip school and go to watch LeBron just like everybody else. I'm like, yo, LeBron, I wear a size 12 in Nikes, I wear a size 11 and a half in Reeboks, hook me up. So I got shoes everywhere, I got jumpsuits everywhere, I got just my life out of control. So lo and behold, we get through the second season, and as we get through the second season, the NCAA comes in, who's the governing body, and basically they convict me of a bunch of violations, and after that, basically, they suspend me for 2 seasons. And now, to say it or to put it in like just basic terms, this was the first time that I basically dealt with stress in my life. The stress of the hood, the stress of the neighborhood, the stress of just coming up in that never really bothered me. I understood the ghetto or the hoods per se, just because I grew up in it, but I never really understood it. I never really understood how to deal with depression, stress, anxiety, and all those emotions that basically you don't really grow up or develop, or you don't really have spaces in your childhood to develop them. So as a result from that, I found myself back in the nightclubs, back to drinking, back to popping pills, back to smoking, and just back to destroying my life, but I really didn't see it like that at the time. So midway through 2004, I decided to go to California to take off. Like, man, I'll just get away from this stuff, get away from Ohio, get away from everything Ohio related, because it's just like real depressing. But when I went to California, that same person followed all those habits that I put in place. They followed me right out to California. And instead of partying Wednesday through Sunday, I was partying Monday through Sunday. So I'm suspended for football for 2 years. And at this time, the NFL calls me after I was suspended for 2 years, and they said, hey, do you want to come to the NFL Combine? We have the NFL Combine taking place in Indianapolis. So I agreed to go to the Combine, and I wasn't in shape by any stretch of the imagination. For the last 2 years, I'm drinking, smoking, partying, having a good time, but not really taking care of my business as an athlete. So I get to the NFL Combine. I decide to run the 40-yard dash, which is the most important event. And to make another long story short, I perform horribly. So I tried to do different cone drills and other athletic drills to basically improve my chances of getting drafted. But to make another long story short, I'm dropping footballs, I'm tripping over my feet, my lower back is hurting, my hamstrings are hurting, and my whole body is breaking down because I'm not in shape. So through the midst of this, I get mad, I walk off the field, I go back to the airport, go back to California. I'm thinking at this point, I'm not going to get drafted. So lo and behold, I go to California. This is in February of 2005. The draft is in April. And as the draft comes up, I'm like, okay, I come to the draft. The draft comes up, I'm not going to get drafted, but I'm cool with that. Like, let me just watch it. So as I started to watch it, I started to see guys who I grew up with, guys that I knew playing football for a long time. They were coming across the stage, holding their jerseys, and I never knew inside of me I would get jealous. I was watching guys live out their dreams, and I'm like, this guy's going to make $40 million. This guy's going to make $50 million. And I was just watching this stuff go on and on. So midway through the second round, I decided to get up, leave. I don't want to watch the TV no more because I'm seeing all of my failures inside of all these guys having success. So I go to, I get in the car, drive around, and midway through the evening, I was coming down the 405 freeway. I get a call from Mike Shanahan, who was the head coach of the Denver Broncos at the time. So Mike calls me up. He says, hey, Maurice, we have the 101st pick in the third round. We would love to draft you and make you a Denver Bronco. So initially I had this level of excitement, since I've been a kid, I've always wanted to go to the NFL, wanted to put the jersey on, wanted to put the hat on, and wanted to do the whole deal like everybody else. As I'm driving down the freeway and hang up with him, I get like this immediate level of anxiety because I know I'm not prepared, and I know at some point I'm going to fail in the process because I haven't been training. So I get to Denver, and after I get to Denver and practice for the first 4 or 5 days, it was just basically going downhill. I couldn't stay up in meetings, couldn't stop from going out to the nightclubs and partying every night. Just couldn't get myself together because I had put so many bad habits in place, and basically my habits were creating my future. So we go midway through training camp. We're getting ready to play the Indianapolis coach, and Mike sits me down. He says, "Hey Maurice, when they draft you, whether you all know it or not, when they draft these kids, they go back to your history when you were a child, and they go through every year to understand psychologically who they're dealing with, family members, and all of the associations that a kid has upon them coming in the NFL, because they have a lot of money invested into these kids, and they want to understand what they're dealing with." So these guys, they was like, you've been through a lot of traumatic experiences throughout your football career. Can we please hook you up with a sports psychologist? And so in my mind, I was like, coming up, there was no way I thought about talking about my problems. I was taught either you don't deal with them, or basically be tough, be a man, don't talk about it, or fight. That was the only way I was thinking about dealing with problems. So they tried to pair me with the sports psychologist. I pushed the sports psychologist away. I said, this is not for me. I'm cool on this. And lo and behold, basically the next day, when I pushed her away from me, the next day they cut me from the team. So now I go back to California. Now I'm really depressed. Now I'm like, man, I've failed 2 situations. My life going nowhere. The only thing I ever had was football. I don't really know what to do. So I ended up coming back to Ohio, and the next thing I know, I'm back into the streets. So I'm back into the streets, back to hustling, back to doing everything basically to put me in a situation. So December 31st, and this is more where the transition comes from, December 31st, I catch a robbery case in downtown Columbus. 8 months after that, I end up catching another case, which is the national case on TV. And that was basically where I got caught with 3 or 4 guns, running from the police, and basically put myself in a bad situation. So at this point, I'm arrested. Everything in my life has stopped. I'm transitioned to the county jail. I'm placed in there, and the judge basically came to me that next morning after I did my arraignment, was like, you know what, you went from basically Mr. Football to Mr. Everything to basically you're sitting in the county jail with me. Like, how did you go from that place? I need you to go and have a psychological evaluation. So essentially, since 2006, since August of 2006, I've been taking mental health medication. It's been helping me think straight, stay calm, and just stay where I'm at right now. But essentially, I got diagnosed with anxiety and depression. Just like this manic behavior. So in 2006, to make a long story short, I got sentenced to 7.5 years. And so I'm sitting in the county jail for the first 7 months. I was isolated in a 10x4 cell for 23 hours out the day. And so through the 23 hours, like I had never sat that still that long in my life. And I believe this was like the refining moment to obviously get me into this space right here. And so I just used to try to retrace all my thoughts, like, why did you start robbing? Why did you not focus on football more? What was making you love where you come from that much, or associate yourself with the behavior you associate yourself with? And I really didn't find any rhyme or reason for anything that was taking place in my life. But I always talk about this one book that changed my entire outcome. There was a small book, 70-page read called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. And it was the first time in my life that I've ever read a book outside of football or outside of school, and it was the first time that basically I was taught that basically thoughts were things. I never associated thoughts with being things. I used to think that thoughts were just like this random stuff that took place and random events take place, but I never understood that you can create your life by basically creating your thoughts, and everything originates in thought, and it essentially comes into the word, essentially comes into your behavior. And so when I read the book for about the first 6 or 7 months of being incarcerated, I read about 8 or 9 times. It had me curious as to basically how my life could have ended if I would have knew I had more control over what took place. So I went to prison. They sentenced me to 7.5 years, and when I get to the institution up in Toledo, there was another blessing, a guy by the name of Kelikante. And Kelikante, he set me down in central office. He was from Africa, actually he's from Sierra Leone. And he said, when we get in trouble in Africa, we tend to bring guys closer to us. We figure out what's going on, we diagnose the problems, and basically let them back out to the village. But in America, when somebody gets in trouble, you all isolate them and condemn them and basically push them away. But I don't do business like that here, and I want to bring you closer to me. So essentially what he did was basically put me in about 13 courses that consisted of like personal development stuff. Thinking for a Change, Cage Your Rage, a parenting class, a cultural class, a class on love, and so on and so forth. And throughout this process of learning and growing and developing myself and just thinking and having patience and getting up early and going to sleep and having like this disciplined rhythm, my life just started to shape back up. And lo and behold, I was like, man, I didn't realize I love to read. And so I would have random family members send me $20 here and $30 there. And I used to have this thing called bargain books. It was like a catalog for basically you can order books for a discount price. And my change and transformation really started in that space. I used to order books, $3, $4 here, $5 here, and really would start giving myself this education. I used to read everything I could possibly want to read about Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett was like the greatest dude to me when I was incarcerated. I taught myself about value investing, taught myself about macro and microeconomics, taught myself about accounting, taught myself everything, basically being self-taught, saved myself enough money, and re-enrolled at Ohio University and knocked some coursework out. And over a period of time, all the stuff that I was learning and basically being taught by everybody else, I basically started teaching classes on this to all the young dudes who were coming from up. Actually, I got a young dude who I'm real close with, a little young guy from, I think it's like an over the Rhine area, little Orlando Bay, you know what I'm saying? A real young guy who's coming up, I was just basically teaching and schooling. So essentially, making a long story short, I got out of prison in 4 years. My mind was focused, my mind was sharp, I knew what I wanted to do with myself. I felt stable, felt educated, felt motivated. I get out in 2010, knocked some more coursework out at Ohio State. And in the midst of that 2010 moment, I was called from a minor league team in football in Omaha, Nebraska, a team called the Omaha Nighthawks. When I finished up with the Omaha Nighthawks, after 2 seasons, and I kind of bring it home after this, right? So I played 2 seasons with Omaha Nighthawks. During my second season, the CEO of TD Ameritrade, which is a large online financial firm, he decided to basically, he didn't want to do business with Ameritrade anymore as an active CEO. He basically wanted to be just the chairman of the board. So he came to coach football. So he made about $400 or $500 million, stopped doing it, and basically wanted to come and coach football. So he would hold weekly financial classes and weekly classes on business and etiquette and basically transition into life after football. So I would show up every single day, learn from him, talk to him, and do everything I possibly could to basically get close to him. So through the course of that, he said, hey, Maurice, you know, your story's intriguing. You come from prison. Everybody else come here from college or the NFL. Basically, come and meet me at the golf course to basically help you out. So I go to the golf course. I tell him about my life. And this is just a cool experience. It has nothing to do with this per se, but it's just a cool moment in my life. He was like, you know, he heard me talking about my fascination with Warren Buffett. So he said, you know, Warren Buffett and Bill Gates are real good friends of mine. So I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. You know what I'm saying? I thought it was like far-fetched at this moment. And so I'm 18 months removed from prison. He was like, I'm gonna have Warren Buffett call you to see if you can meet with him sometime. So I'm thinking like, all right, cool, that sounds good, but Warren Buffett's not about to meet with me, right? So lo and behold, I'm walking through my apartment, I get a phone call, and he says, hey, can I speak to Maurice? And so I'm like, all right, cool, yeah, this is me. And he said, this is Warren Buffett. So I get a smile on my face like, yo, it's really Warren Buffett. You know, it's a cool moment for me. And so he was like, Joe Mobley told me you want to meet with me. And I was like, yeah, I do want to meet with you. He was like, do you have anything going on Saturday? And I said, man, if I do, it's counsel, don't worry about it. You know what I'm saying? And so I essentially called whoever I was going to meet that Saturday, hung up the phone, and basically I went down. And I thought it was going to be like a cool 2-second moment, but essentially he let me sit down for 5 hours. You know, I was just like this with Warren Buffett, 5 hours. My family was with me. And just rapping with him one-on-one. And just to put it in context, he charged people $600-700 grand just to meet with him for that long. And just to sit down with him and to pick his brain and to use the education I had learned to basically advance or make a relationship in my life was really cool to me. But after 2 years of being out there, I was on probation in Ohio, and I was only out there to play football. I had started me a youth league when I was out there. We had about 380 kids, about 25 coaches. I started doing coaching clinics and teaching these kids to basically how to play football again. But after the 2 years I was out there, the football league had shut down. I was forced to come back to Ohio to basically get myself back together, or I was basically come back to Ohio because I was on probation. When I came back to Ohio, in the process of doing that, there was a lady named Marilyn Ford, and she was actually the law professor at Quinnipiac University. And when Marilyn was out in Quinnipiac, she invited me out to a conference and she forced me to speak. She said, Maurice, your story represents a lot of young men. A lot of young men in life give up when things get hard and they get challenging, but basically trying to get yourself back together. I see it. Somebody have told me stories about you. I had another person from ESPN reach out to me and they said, hey Maurice, we understand that you're out of prison. You've been getting your life together in Omaha. We would like to do a 30 for 30 on you, but they wanted to talk about football. So initially I disagreed to do the 30 for 30. That's, if anybody hasn't seen, it's on Netflix, called Youngstown Boys. And essentially, two things happened at once. I started speaking on stage, which Marilyn Ford forced me to do. And she forced me just to speak in front of kids, adults, anybody. I've spoken in front of every county in Ohio, I promise you, in every major city and minor city around the world. I've been to over 160 cities in the last 2 years. But when ESPN came out to film, just my life kind of took off to another level. And I was able to travel. And from that, I've been able to do a bunch of cool things. I've been able to, one, earn myself some money, but two, also get into the transportation business. I've gotten into packaging. Just this year, I've done about $1.5 million with Cardinal Health, just in packaging material. I have some Sprinter vans, cargo vans, and I broker larger freight. So I've been able to be an entrepreneur for myself. I've been able to independently produce my own book. It's sold about probably 15,000 copies, but I've been all able to do it, and a bunch more for my community. Gave away about 700 helmets last year, about 400 pairs of cleats and mouthpiece to inner city kids and people who can't use them. But it all came from basically me getting my life back together and me basically coming back to share myself with people, just basically being vulnerable, sharing my heart, and really just sharing what I made myself of. You know what I'm saying? Essentially, even this week, you know what I'm saying, just to go through from Thursday to Sunday, not to damper the mood, from Thursday to Sunday, I lost 6 people. You know what I'm saying? A grandfather, a person who's like my grandfather. The stuff kind of rocked my world, but I done been through so much in my life. I know how to get myself back on track and get myself together where I can basically be a professional. You know what I'm saying? But that's all it comes down to. Things in life happen. You got ups, you got downs, you got good days, you got bad days, you got events that you want to happen, you got stuff that you don't want to happen. But at the end of the day, you got people depending on you, you got people who are looking to you, you got people you need to motivate, people you need to pick up. And it's all about just picking yourself back up. And that's what my whole life is about. You know what I'm saying? No matter what situation that you're in, you just find the wherewithal and the discipline to pick yourself back up and make yourself what you want to in your life. And it all starts with how you think. You know, so as a man thinketh, so shall he become. And that's it. That's me. I don't know if that's motivating anybody, but that's the reality of my life. You know what I'm saying? Just things happen. It was hard. It was tough. But at the end of the day, it was all about looking myself in the mirror and be like, you know what? I can make something more of myself. I knew where I was at when I got out of prison. It wasn't the last stop. You know, it just wasn't the last stop for me, and I've been able to do it. You know, with that being said.